Okay, you guys. So I asked you in a recent video if you wanted to see my updated highlighting and contouring routine because I completely changed it. And obviously a bunch of you were like, duh, like anytime you're doing something new, just do it. And I was like, all right. So the reason that I changed it up was because I feel like you tend to get in kind of a rut where you're just doing the same thing, you know? You end up doing it and maybe it changes a little bit and you're not really paying attention. You don't even know why you're doing certain things. You've just been doing it for so long. So I decided to take a photo of myself without any makeup on and just kind of like assess my face. And basically what I determined was that like I like to really accentuate the heart shape of my face. It can look a little bit more round, and I kind of feel like the way I was contouring it was accentuating the roundness of my face and not exactly more of the heart shape. So if we're just like kind of breaking down my features, I have quite a large forehead. My hairline goes back, you know, pretty high. So something that I like to do is bring that down a little bit. But what I was doing was kind of like doing this, you know, which kind of just made my forehead look like a little bit weird, a little disconnected. So I changed that. Then for the center of my face, I was highlighting a lot like right here, but not quite out here. So it was kind of bringing my face in a little bit. And so we're gonna change that. I just want to do like a quick breakdown. And then for the lower part of my face, I was, you know, focusing more on like underneath my chin, which I still do, or underneath my jawline, I mean, to like kind of push that area back, like make it a little more snatched. But that's pretty much all I was doing. And then I would kind of put these like tiny dots right here, but it wasn't achieving what I wanted. And I kind of feel like it was making like this part of my jaw stand out more and look a little more round, I guess. So anyway, the product that I'm gonna be using for contouring is, wait, should I do my highlighting first? What do I usually do? I guess I'll highlight first. So I obviously already have my foundation and my color corrector on. For my concealer, I'm going to be using, what am I gonna be using? I'm actually gonna use my Juvia's Place concealer that I used recently because I really like it. And this is number 23. It's pretty light, but you know, I want you to be able to see what the fuck I'm doing. So what I like to do is highlight right in here. And I like to highlight this area between my nose. And the reason for that is because when I contour my nose, this is the largest area of it. You know, it's not quite very refined. What? It's not very refined. When this looks a little bit lighter, when I bring more light in this area, it brings it forward a little bit more. And then I darken up this area, it kind of like balances it out. It makes it look a little bit more straight, which we're gonna get to. But that's the reason that I highlight this area right here. I was kind of just highlighting like right here and concealing and leaving it at that. Now what I do is I highlight here. So like I have nice high cheekbones, so I kind of want to accentuate that. So I kind of do this area and then right on the sides of my nose. So that's where I'm gonna place the product to begin with. I also like to highlight this right here. And then as far as my chin, because I have a tiny little chin, I kind of just like to do this right there. And that's it for concealer. So let's blend that out. I'm using my LC Cosmetics Velvet Sponge, which really needs to be rehydrated. And just keep in mind, like when you place these when you're placing these colors down, when you're placing the highlighter, when you're placing your contour, you want to be very careful about how you're blending it out. A lot of these like influencers, you'll see these videos where they just kind of like draw all over their face. They like throw down all this contour, all this concealer, all this blush, and then they like just haphazardly like are blending it out. And if you're like, I try that and it just doesn't work, it's because it doesn't work. I don't know how they're doing it either. It's kind of crazy. So I'm really brightening up this area right here and kind of like blending it into that forehead highlight. So just bringing a lot of attention right there. Blend out my chin. So basically what I'm saying is where you place the product, there's a reason for it. And you want to make sure that you're keeping it in that area. So if I were to just like blend this out, you know, it's not doing anything. If you feel like you have like too much product there, go back in with the sponge or the brush that you applied your foundation with and just kind of like blend around the edges, which is gonna help just diffuse that color. I tend to get redness around my nose, so that's why I'm doing this. I also kind of like to drag it into where my smile lines are so that that area doesn't look like, just so that it looks a little bit more plump. Please keep in mind that no one needs to contour or highlight. You do not need to like change the way your face looks, but it's one of the things that you can do with makeup. I like knowing that I can. I like knowing why I do certain things, but you shouldn't feel like you have to, and that's the best part about it. So now I'm gonna start blending out what we put on my cheekbone. So I'm gonna start up here, and then I'm gonna kind of bring it down, like kind of what's left over. But I really like to accentuate that nice high cheekbone that I have. Almost taking it to my temple. You definitely don't have to take it up that high, but I like to keep this area nice and light. And then I'm kind of gonna take whatever's left to conceal underneath my eyes, because this is a very full coverage concealer, so it like definitely travels. But the difference between this is I'm placing the majority of the light color here, which is where we're getting like the most of that payoff. So we're really bringing this area forward in space because it's much lighter. So we're focusing it here rather than like down here, which kind of just makes this area of my face look like more plump, you know, which is fine, but it's not really what I'm going for, especially if this area is lighter than over here, then this isn't really like coming forward. And again, if you feel like you put down too much product or you just like need to blend around the edges without taking that color everywhere, just go back in with you know, your sponge or brush with your foundation on it. Basically, a good thing to keep in mind, a good rule is wherever you want the most focus, that's where you place the color to begin with. I'm just brightening in because I have a I have kind of deep set eyes, this area of my nose, in around my eyes and in my eyes and my nose, whatever, can get very like dark and just look, makes me look a little tired. So I'm just blending this. And then the reason that I like to lighten up the sides of my nose is because it helps make it look a little bit thinner. And I will show you how I contour when we go in with that. But I'm not taking this like all the way down because we basically already did that. I'm just focusing it on the sides of my nose. I don't want to take it in too far, but I just like to lighten up this area because it kind of helps to make the side of my nose look more flush with the under part of my cheek, which is going to make it look a little bit thinner, which again is not necessary, but if you're trying to figure out how to do that, that's how. I feel like you can already see like a pretty vast difference. Now my nose, if I turn, it like comes out quite a bit. I don't really need to like draw a line down the center of it. If your nose is more low profile and you're trying to make it look like more, I don't know, like straight or like something like that, like you want to bring it forward a little bit, then you can do that. But I'm just gonna leave it the way it is right now. All right, so now for contour, my favorite contour color, and I have gone back to it, is the KKW Beauty Light Medium Contour Stick. Just a great color, man. I can't get away from it. I keep going back to it. So the way that I've changed my contour, and keep in mind the difference between contour and bronzer. I actually have a video about the difference between contour and bronzer that I'll pop in if you're confused. This is my contour. This is what I use to create shape, to manipulate shape. I'm playing with lights and darks here. Bronzer is meant for warmth, okay? So that video will be up here if you're very confused. But just keep in mind this is my contour. So what I like to do is, because I do have quite a large forehead, so I like to kind of bring it down. So I'm gonna darken that right there. And then I just kind of like to accentuate my temples. So I'm just gonna pop a little bit right there, which is just going to create a little bit more shape to my forehead, you know? It just makes it a little bit more 3D, I guess. Now for the lower part of my face, I'm gonna start off by placing darkness underneath my jawline, which is just gonna kind of like help to, you know, pretend like I haven't been eating a shit ton of pasta and bread, which I'm always like, I have to stop doing and I keep doing it. So just under here, right? That might look like a lot, but it's gonna be fine. And then what I like to do is to minimize the roundness of my jawline. What I was doing before is just kind of placing like a little bit of darkness like right there, but it wasn't really doing that much. So now what I'm doing is kind of like looking at the actual shape of my face. If you see, it kind of comes up like this and then goes into my cheekbone. So I'm literally gonna follow that. I'm literally going to do this and then bring it up into my cheekbone. And I'm gonna darken that. Again, might look crazy, just bear with me. And the nice thing about these contour sticks is that they actually sheer out a lot. So like this might look like a lot, but they're a very sheer formula. I really like to contour on my lips. I have a video on that and I'll pop it right here for you if you want to know more. I just do here, 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 and then contour mustache on the top. And then for my nose, I do here. I draw this, and then right there, and I have a video about my uneven nose that I'll pop up here if you're like, what is that? This is mostly about the face. Wow, this looks crazy. So now I'm gonna blend this out. I'm using this little brush from Wet n Wild. It's the P77 brush. I don't know if it still exists. There are plenty of like really good small, you know, detail brushes like this out there. So I am going to just blend this out, but once again, you want to keep in mind that you're placing this product in a specific area for a reason. You don't want to blend it out too much. I'm kind of just like blending up into my hairline. I wear my hair forward, so you don't really see this area anyway, but if you happen to, you know, I want everything to look cohesive. If there's an area, if you're using a brush to blend it out, and there's an area where you have a lot of breakouts, or you have a lot of redness and you need to maintain the coverage there, patting is really going to help. It also helps to, you know, like blend with the sponge. I like to use a brush for this because I just feel like there's more precision. So kind of around the edges I'm patting so I'm not getting too reckless. And then once again, you can always go back in with your foundation sponge or brush and blend. Same here. Just very lightly. I'm not trying to make this part of my forehead look like thinner. I'm just trying to add shape. So if that's something that you're interested in or you like the way this looks, then like give it a shot. I don't know why I started doing it, but I like the way it looks. So I kept doing it. And I'm patting in this area because typically around my temples is where I get breakouts. So I just, you know, want to maintain a little more coverage there. Now I like to go down here, and I can be a little bit more reckless with this area just because it's underneath my jawline. So I'll blend and keep the product like in the, like basically when I do this, I want the area that like comes forward the most, or the area that I want to go back in space the most. Like the area you want to make look smaller or less noticeable, you want it to be the darkest. So I'm really trying to maintain that contour shade right underneath my jawline. And this area, just push that area back in space. See, now you can see I have like a nice shadow underneath. It just makes it look like my jawline's a little bit more cut. And then if I go like this, because you don't want it to be so noticeable, I'll kind of blend it down a little bit, keeping the majority of that color here. But then I'll kind of follow the natural like lines of my neck so that that color just looks cohesive. So I'll just kind of take a little bit and draw it down here. And then same thing on the other side, just so it looks blended. And then for this, once again, I'm gonna pat, I'm gonna drag it down here because I like this area to look like it's going back, because this is the area, like this area right here is where if I eat too much pasta, I gain weight. I don't love it, so I want to minimize this area. So I'm just gonna pat, and then I'm going to connect it up. So now I'm going to use sweeping motions. And I'm going to blend it up into like where my, like just underneath my cheekbone. See how that line just kind of like cinches that a little bit more? So it really helps to, like that dark and light of the concealer is really helping to like accentuate those cheekbones. And then this dark, keeping this dark is really bringing this area in. So we're not like darkening up the whole area because I obviously don't want my like whole jawline to be gone, but it's really helping to kind of just like, you know what I mean? So I'm keeping this in the area that I want it, but then because I mean, you can kind of see that. I'm gonna take my sponge and I'm gonna blend around the edges. And you just wanna make sure that like it's blended and that you're choosing a contour color that's actually gonna work for your skin tone, because otherwise it's gonna look super crazy. If I use something that's like purpley gray, that's gonna look insane. But this color works really nicely with the rest of my shadows, so. And honestly, if it's blended and you're using a color cohesively throughout your makeup, it's gonna look intentional. It's gonna look like it's meant to be there. Like I could do this with blue and it's gonna look bomb as long as it's blended, you know what I mean? You can do this with powder, you can do this with cream. I prefer cream for my contour, and then I kind of like go back and forth as far as my bronzer. But if you don't like creams, if you happen to be a little bit more oily, there are plenty of great powder contours out there. And just the exact same way, you know? You can do the padding with powder too. I would suggest this kind of a brush. This is the Morphe M510 because it just blends over powder really nicely. It's not going to, it's like very airbrushed, so it's not going to remove product. And even if you do padding, just use a light hand, you know? Okay, and then for my lips and my nose, I like to use something just small, more detailed. This is the E31 by Sigma. Literally the same concept, and I linked those videos if you need more detail. Because this is just too specific, you know? But basically the reason that I do this is because my nose, I have like an uneven bump in my nose. So I'm just trying to kind of like even it out and make it look a little more symmetrical. That's basically it for my new contouring and highlighting technique. This concealer is a little bit light, but I just wanted you to be able to like really see the shape and just kind of like how I've changed it. You can see how the shape overall just kind of accentuates that like nice heart-shaped face, kind of go, yeah, heart shape. It kind of like goes around my eyes and comes to this point. So it pushes this area back and my face just looks a little bit less round. I like it. I don't feel like I have to do it all the time. It's not something that I'm gonna do all the time, but when I do like full glam and I really wanna look like snatched, this is how I'm gonna do it. So hopefully this helped. I've made so many videos about contouring. Yeah, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below. And that's literally all I have to say, so I'm gonna go now, bye.